So, do you plan on terminating your pregnancy, or do you want to wait and have the baby die inside of you, or do you want to give birth to potentially a stillborn or have a baby delivered into your arms only to die in your arms? That is a question that was asked of me numerous times the other day. So it is going to be a hard video today. We're going to chat about it and talk to you guys about it and talk all the things. So hope you come along with me. I know I'm at a really odd angle. I had to move. I don't want to be talking about this right with the kids and stuff, so I don't get distracted. But I also moved my bedroom around a lot, and my bedroom is really dark unless I'm in front of the window, which means that my bed is in front of the window, so we are chatting on the bed. Okay, so in the book of Jeremiah, my husband's Bible, you can see all this stuff shoved in his Bible. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations." I always love that scripture because it's really amazing, because before any child is on this earth, God knew that child. I think it's just incredible to think of that, right? And that God formed that baby in the womb. God touched each one of us in order to form us and created us exactly the way He intended. He put us into whatever family we're in. He knew our life, right? He knows all things. He is holy. He is almighty and all powerful. And we have to trust that in all the situations with our life, when my son, Bobby, passed away, there was a lot of things that went on. If you haven't heard that testimony, I have given it here on YouTube. There was a lot of things that went on that were not appropriate as far as the medical field went. And I could wallow in the fact that the medical world didn't care for my son the way that I would have wanted them to care for my son. But I also knew ultimately that the Lord had His hand in it, and the Lord chose that was His time. And it was His time to go be with the Lord. And I just had to trust that. And it's hard, but I have to remind myself of that when I find myself getting bitter or angry about the whole scenario, that God knew it all and He allowed it to happen, right? So let's talk a little bit. So if you guys know me in real life, I am discussing this here to everyone, and that is where my heart is right now. I don't really want to have open discussions on our plans or what we're doing or whatever, because we don't really what I tell you here is what I know right now, and that's about it. So the other day, Wednesday, the kids were all excited because we were going for my 20-week ultrasound, and they were excited. They wanted to know if it was a boy or girl. They're all wondering what it's going to be, right? I think all kids are like that. They're just so eager that God was blessing our family again with a baby. And so we went for our ultrasound. Now, there are some very stringent laws in the hospital that we're at. So no person under 18 is supposed to be in the waiting room to the ultrasound. Now, my first ultrasound, I spoke to the director, and I had asked them, if I have somebody watching Sweet Pea, can she be in there? Because I don't feel comfortable at this point for her being so far away from me when she's not that stable. There's times, honestly, that she'll go from her blood sugars will go from 250 down to 50 in the matter of an hour. And so just trying to, sorry, I've had a bunch of stuff going on in between all of this. So we got in there. My husband wanted to come for the ultrasound. So he had taken the day off. It was a Friday, not his normal day off. He had taken the day off and we were going to go in for the ultrasound. And he, when we got in there, we had an older child who was there to watch, or child, whatever, to watch Sweet Pea, the one who has type 1 diabetes. And she had had a really rough few days. Like, she kept crashing. Like, overnight, she was doing like that 250 to 50 thing overnight. And we've been tweaking meds and that type of stuff, trying to get her in like the right range and all this stuff. Yeah, so it has been just crazy with her things. And we didn't feel comfortable like leaving anyone like in a vehicle for that amount of time and that type of stuff with her. So we came in and they never told us that that was null and void, like we couldn't bring her back again. And when we got in there, they said that she could not be in there. And so my husband and the girls, they literally like sat on the floor outside of the door. And I went into the ultrasound by myself. And so things were going okay, seeing the little baby, little hands moving and feet moving. And, you know, that's always so precious, you know, just to see your little one moving around and that type of stuff. And so during the ultrasound, she kept going back to the baby's heart. And so I knew that there might have been some concern around the baby's heart. And I was trying to look and I could see myself. I'm not a ultrasound tech, right? I could see the heart, and then you can usually see like the 4 chambers, and you could see the chambers. And I'll be honest, like I didn't see like the flaps. Sometimes with some ultrasounds, you could see like the flaps actually moving. I also know a lot about like heart stuff because my son who passed away, he had echocardiograms like all the time. And so, but I haven't, on every ultrasound, I haven't seen that on every ultrasound. So it was not like uncommon that I didn't see that either. So then she's like, well, I can't get the baby in a good position. Really, she was kind of coming like on top of the baby's head rather than like forward to the baby's face. And so she couldn't like, she was kind of like getting really odd angles the way the baby was. And so she said, why don't you try and go to the bathroom and then come back? And I've had this happen before, like, okay, walk around for a little bit, try to get that baby to move around. And so she asked me to do that, had more ultrasound. And then when she came back in, she said, did you have genetic testing? Portland wanted to know if you had genetic testing. And I was like, no, I didn't, because my midwife had said, well, we can do the ultrasound, and then if you want to do genetic testing after, you can. That's completely up to you. We can decide then. That's fine. I said, okay, that's fine. We'll just do that. Doesn't really matter to me, like, how you want to do it, whatever. And so, I said, no, we hadn't, like, done whatever with genetic testing or whatever. So then she's like, okay. And then she left. And then she's like, well, there's something with the baby's arms and the baby's heart. And so I want, you're going to be like in this meeting with a geneticist from Portland, which is like the big city, which is 4-ish hours away, a little more. So I had to go in this other room and wait, which was hard because I knew at that point, like, something's wrong with my baby. And just trying to think different things, like, you know, you think all these things, like, well, if the baby has something wrong with the heart, like, whatever, just, you know, your brain just thinks. And so, she comes back, whatever, she brings like a laptop type thing, and there's a woman on there, and she says, and it was kind of weird though, because she didn't give me like a breakdown of all the things that made them think this way. She just said that there was a few things wrong. I do know, like, the ultrasound tech was able to say that, like, the baby's hands were like this, But actually in one of the ultrasound pictures that she gave me, the baby had like, maybe it was like this with like sucking the thumb, but it was like it was like sucking a thumb. And so she said the hands were like that and there was like some heart issues. That's what I knew like at that point. So the geneticist gets on and they said there was a number of signs that they think the baby has. I hope I say this right. Trisomy. Is it trisomy 18? Trisomy? I'm sorry if I say that wrong. 18. And so then she goes into like more of like the conclusion of what that would be. So she never really said like, okay, these are the lists of things that I see wrong with your baby, and this is what makes me conclude this. So when she said that, she did start going into some different things. And then I asked, well, is it possible that it would be like 21, whatever Down syndrome would be? So no, it looks more like trisomy 18. So she's like convinced that it's trisomy 18. I know I'm saying that wrong. I can like hear it in my own voice that I'm saying that wrong. Eventually, if it really is, eventually it's going to whatever. So basically they were saying that they know that the baby has this. Now that it's been a few days, I'm like, they don't know 100% that the baby, and they did, after I asked like pointed questions, they did say no, they don't know 100% that the baby has that, and they wouldn't be able to know even with the genetic testing if it was 100%. But if the ultrasound and the blood work were the same, then it would be a really high probability. So the thing is when they gave me this ultrasound and they told me all this information, they didn't give like, I don't want to say any hope. It was kind of like, your baby has this. They didn't say like, we think your baby has this. They're like, your baby has this and whatever. And I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to deny that my baby doesn't have this. Like probably it does. And you know, we have to deal with that as a family and that type of stuff. So if you guys do not know, I'll just tell you like kind of what they were telling me, because I didn't know anything until I came home and I looked things up. Basically, they said that my baby would either be, would either die in my stomach and I would go to, well, first off, they asked me like 3 times if I wanted to abort the baby. I'm 21 weeks along, guys. They asked me 3 times. Do you know how like it's, if I already said no, no matter what, no, like stop asking me. Like I don't believe that. Like I believe that every baby should have a chance, even if it's just for a little time. Even if the time is only during the time that I'm carrying the baby. I've lost 5 babies to miscarriage, and I have no doubt in my mind that those babies are in heaven. I was blessed to be able to carry those babies. And that's how I feel. And I feel the same about this baby. I'm blessed that I'm able to carry this baby. No matter what's wrong with this baby, that God cherished this baby. God formed this baby in my womb. He did that. Like, that is amazing in and of itself, you know? And so I was asked a bunch of times if I wanted to take that form of action. And so basically they said what was going to happen is either I was going to do that, or my baby would, like, we'd go for like a visit and not find a heartbeat, and the baby would have died, and then they'll induce my labor, and then I would have a stillborn. They said only like 10% of babies actually make it through labor and delivery, but a lot of babies are born actually around their delivery time. But a lot of them don't make it through labor and delivery. That's what they told me. It's devastating, right? Like, your emotions are already up here because you are expecting, like, all the good stuff about your baby, right? Like, you're expecting to know if it's a boy, it's a girl. We don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. They couldn't really tell. You guys fell down. They couldn't really tell. I cried for about 6 hours because of the unknown, because of, like, the way I felt they were. It's hard. It's hard news without people matter-of-factly telling you that you should really kill your baby. Because you're trying to process it all, right? Like, I'm thinking in my head, okay, well, I also need to consider, like, my health. Am I going to go into, like, a premature labor? Am I going to need to worry about, like, excess bleeding? Am I going to need to worry about, like, those types of things? Like, those were some of my concerns. Then my other concerns were, okay, like, afterwards, if the baby's going to die, afterwards, then I know all my children will want to see the baby. And the way now, granted, I was already upset. Like, I was already crying because I was so upset. It was so maddening to me that I'm in this hospital with a child that could potentially crash and die, right? Like, type 1 is, like, serious business, and she keeps crashing. And if she keeps crashing, like, somebody needs to be there, right? And so they're, like, kicking her out, and that's, like, my baby, right? Like, they're kicking my baby out of the room. I'm here, and I'm, like, waiting for these things, so I'm kind of worried about her a little bit too, although my husband did stay with her the whole time, which is the way I wanted it. They kept being like, do you want your husband to come in? I'm like, no, he's with our daughter. You kicked them out. Do you remember? So thinking, like, then I'm, like, thinking of these things, and I'm thinking, like, are my children going to be able to, like, see this baby? How does that work? How does whatever work? When they sent me downstairs so I could go do blood work, they asked me to do blood work. They wanted me to do an amniocentesis. I denied that. Amniocentesis are really, there's a high probability that you would miscarry the baby or go into preterm labor, because honestly, I don't think that a miscarriage, they call it a miscarriage, but if you're 20-something weeks pregnant, you're not going to have a miscarriage. You're going to be in full-blown labor. I had a miscarriage at 12.5, I think it was 12 weeks, 5 days. And I hemorrhaged. Like, it was, like, a bad miscarriage. Like, so I can't imagine, like, that's not a miscarriage, right? Like, anyway. So since that time, we've processed a little bit, you know. I think the hardest thing is, like, I was waiting and waiting and waiting to go get my blood work, and I'm waiting in an office with a bunch of pregnant women. And at that time, like, that I was waiting, like, waiting with my husband and my 2 kids, and I couldn't control myself. And I, like, told the 2 kids that were with me what was going on and that there was something wrong with the baby, and they were upset. And then I knew I was going to have to go home and do the same thing over again. So now, mind you, my husband knew none of this. So when I got out of the office, like, he knows me, and I was like bawling my eyes out. And so he's like, what's wrong? Whatever. So I'm trying to like explain whatever to him. So I told them at the same time. So now I've had to tell like all of them. And then I knew I was going to have to go home and tell those kids that were so excited in the morning. And they were so excited to know if it was a boy or girl. And that was like the biggest concern of the day. So trying to like figure all that out. Anyway, we made it through. That was Wednesday. Today is Tuesday. My week's all thrown off because it's Memorial Day weekend, and my husband had like 3 days off, which was cool. We ended up going, taking the kids camping. I'll share some of that. Taking the kids camping. We came home early just because they were supposed to get really bad thunder and lightning storms, and people were already cold. It was like, I want to say it was like 50 something, so it was chilly because it was like raw because of the wetness. So we ended up coming home because we knew the van. I told you guys before about our broken vehicles, and we took our broken van, and every time we went to go like up any incline, like the transmission was like not going forward. Like you had to put your four ways on, like kind of up the. So anyway, I had the minivan, and then he had the big van, just in case we broke down the side of the road. Then we could shove some kids in the back of the van. But we wanted to give them that experience, so we did have a good time, and we also had time to talk about it, think about it, pray about it. So we're just living the next day, right? I want to try to give like my feelings out. I think on the way home, I was struggling with any of it. Like I was struggling with like, how do you go through like all the pain of like labor and delivery if you know like your baby's, you're not even gonna like see your baby? Or it sounds silly, but I'm gonna say it in case like somebody else feels this way. Like I was really hungry because I hadn't eaten for a while, and I was like, I always feel like I should eat, you know, good food to give my baby the best nutrition so I can, you know, give the baby like the best, you know. And then I kind of felt like, what's the point? And I know that that's a wrong feeling, like it really is, but I'm just like saying like my heart and how I felt at that moment, because if there's somebody else going through this, I want them to understand like what you feel, it's okay. Like it's okay to feel whatever you feel because it's your journey, and no one can tell you how to have like your journey and your emotions. But we both, you know, our whole family is like, I think we're hoping that the blood work comes back, and maybe that's not the issue. Maybe the baby had like has another heart condition or another whatever. Like we're kind of hoping that maybe one of those things are, or maybe that the Lord chooses to use this for a period of time, that I might be able to bless and share with others. God can heal. He shows it all throughout scripture. All throughout scripture, how many times he heals. If he wants to heal this baby, I know and I trust 100% he can do that. If he wants to heal Eden, he can heal Eden 100%. But I'm not going to go and beg God, because I know that the Lord knows what he's doing, and I have to trust that and put my trust in him. And if it doesn't work out the way I want at that moment, it doesn't mean that God is not sovereign, because he is. He's allowing it to happen. And it's just my journey to go through it. So ultimately, everyone here wants to meet this baby, even if it's only for a few minutes. said it was hard to my husband about carrying the baby. It's like a weird feeling, right? Like you're carrying a baby that's alive and that's safe and I can feel move. And he says, yes, but like, you're blessed that way. You can feel that baby right now. You get to have the baby when it's alive. He's like, I can just hope for a couple minutes, you know. So I'm going to share this journey because I think that it's important for others to see that, because it's not talked about. I noticed statistically, this is another thing, actually, this is like the other side of things. So I came home and I started looking at things that weren't like immediately on Google, and I started asking around and finding other people. And it was really weird because I was told like I was lucky if it would like, if the baby would last like delivery. And then I'm seeing faces of babies that are alive, faces of children that are alive. Now, the children are handicapped. Yes. I'm not afraid of handicapped children. I feel so blessed by my children who aren't normal. So blessed that God allowed Bobby to be my son. He was he had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He started off fine. He could run and he could play, and he ended up being a quadriplegic. I took care of all of his toileting. We fed him all his meals. We brushed his hair and put on his deodorant. Like, there's something about serving in that way. It's only like a glimmer of serving, you know. It's giving of yourself like unconditionally, right? And I think that most moms that have children with disabilities can all relate in that manner. There's something very relatable about knowing somebody who's struggling, who's going through a disability. And whether it's like, sometimes, you know, there's a difference between a child really struggling in the grocery store that has a disability, and the parents trying to take control of that or help that child through that. And then there's like negligent type parents. And sometimes, a lot of times, actually, the parents who have a child with a disability look like maybe they're not the nicest parent because they're trying to like keep that child safe. And I'm talking about like if a child has autism or something like that. Like, I remember Bobby, when he could walk and stuff, he would start slamming his head against things. And so I would have to hold him really tight because that made him feel safe and would allow him to come down. But from the outside, like looking in, people would think that, oh my goodness, what's she doing to her son? But then he'd calm down, you know? And so I think that we can all relate as moms to children with disabilities, whether it's type 1, whether it's autism, whether it's, you know, any type, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, anything. Like, I think it's so relatable. And I think that I find that children that have disabilities are some of the most compassionate people in the world. They're always thinking of other people first. And when they love with all their hearts. It's so precious. Anyway, that is my journey today. It was encouraging to see faces. They don't tell you that. I know that if this is our journey, there might be some fights with medical professions. There might be some looking for the right medical professions, for all that type of stuff, because what I'm gleaning from some of the boards that talk about this is they don't want to resuscitate babies or anything like that if they know the baby is going to be disabled. which is sad. I mean, I think that if a baby, I don't know, I think I'll probably get into that in a different video as we go through and we make decisions and that type of stuff. Like, because I'm going to need to write down exactly what our decisions look like so I know where to fight and where to let go. That's what we did with Bobby. Knew where to fight and where to let go. So, I hope you all have a blessed day. It's been rough. So, you're probably going to see this summer, probably spend lots of time with the kids. We also understand that if we do end up going on a journey, no matter what, like if the child is disabled, that we could be in the NICU a lot, that mom might not be around, so I want to spend some precious time. Also that being a mom from a child that had disabilities for a long time, the other children kind of can't do lots of things that maybe they wanted to do because they're limited on their abilities, because a lot of places are inaccessible. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but where we know all these different things, we're just also thinking like, hey, let's have a good time. Let's have fun with our kids while we can and enjoy it. Let me just praise the Lord for every time I feel this baby kick or squirm, because that's another day that I know that I have with this baby. And yeah, so I think that's it for the day. I'll keep you updated on it. And I'm sorry if this was really hard for some of you to watch. I would appreciate it if you're kind in the comments below. I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, my age, technically those statistics are not very good. The people that I have seen on most of these boards that have had children have been younger, as in like under 35. So I don't think that it's necessarily having to do with somebody's age. It just has to do with things happen, right? We live in an imperfect, fallen world. But I want to like cherish this baby the way God cherishes it. The way you are fearfully and wonderfully made. This baby is fearfully and wonderfully made. And I am thankful to be able to carry it. So I hope y'all have a blessed day.